"Stop plating that sauce," Morgan said. "The company printed on those bottles has never manufactured this batch." Her warning cut through the kitchen at Magnolia Row 1 hour and 47 minutes before 200 charity guests were due to arrive. Knives stopped against cutting boards. The ticket printer kept clicking beside the polished steel counters, but every cook turned toward the woman under the service lights. Andrew Kim froze near the kitchen doors. 10 years had passed since he had last seen his ex-wife. He still recognized the calm authority in her voice before he fully recognized her face. Dr. Morgan Ellis wore a navy field jacket, a cream blouse, and the temporary inspection badge issued for the event. Her dark hair rested behind her shoulders. In one hand, she held a sealed bottle of green herb sauce. In the other, she held her phone. "You cannot enter my kitchen during preparation and stop the menu," Andrew said. His voice remained controlled, but his fingers tightened around a tasting spoon. "I did not stop your menu," Morgan replied. "I stopped one sauce before someone served it." Trevor Lang emerged from the pantry corridor, adjusting his gray jacket. For more than a decade, he had managed every supplier contract at Magnolia Row. He gave the staff a thin smile. "Most of you were not here when she tried this before," he said. "She nearly destroyed our opening with another accusation she could not prove." A few employees lowered their eyes. Morgan placed the bottle on the counter. "Then prove me wrong," she said. Trevor reached for it, but Morgan kept 2 fingers against the glass. "Do not remove potential evidence." The room went silent. Andrew remembered the first opening 10 years earlier. Morgan had questioned a delivery. Trevor had called her jealous. Andrew had called her reckless. Their marriage had failed soon afterward. Now she was standing in the same kitchen while the largest dinner in the history of Magnolia Row waited less than 2 hours away. Outside, servers arranged 200 place cards beneath warm lights. Donors were already traveling toward the restaurant. "What is your evidence?" Trevor asked. Morgan turned the bottle so the code faced Andrew. "The manufacturer uses an 8-character batch system. This label has 9. The inspection mark is misplaced, and the distributor number belongs to a company that lost certification 3 years ago." Andrew studied the label. One number appeared narrower than the others. "That could be a printing error," Trevor said. "It could," Morgan answered. "Call the manufacturer." Trevor laughed. "We are not delaying a 200-person event because your ex-wife has another theory." Morgan watched Andrew. "Do not trust me," she said. "Verify it yourself." Andrew placed the spoon beside the bottle and opened the official manufacturer portal on the kitchen tablet. Trevor stepped closer. "Andrew, once you continue, every employee will assume there is a safety problem." Andrew copied the batch number exactly. For several seconds, a circle moved across the screen. The ovens hummed. A tray of glasses chimed in the dining room. Then the page refreshed. A red notice appeared beneath the company logo. Andrew read the 3 words twice. "Batch not found." Trevor became completely still. Morgan kept her eyes steady. Andrew looked from the screen to the 60 bottles waiting beside the preparation station. For the first time in 10 years, he wondered whether his ex-wife had ever been wrong. 17 guests disclosed serious food allergies, Morgan said. "If even one label is false, this dinner cannot begin." Her words gave the red warning on the tablet a human consequence. Trevor briefly lost his smile. Andrew knew that a missing batch record did not prove what was inside the bottles, but it proved Morgan had noticed something his own controls had missed. "How do you know the guest list?" he asked. "Dana Wells hired my firm to perform the independent allergen review required by the event contract." Morgan placed her credential on the counter. It identified her as a senior food safety consultant. "The assignment arrived yesterday. I did not know Magnolia Row was the venue until this morning." "Convenient," Trevor said. "Inconvenient would be discovering the problem after dinner," Morgan replied. Andrew looked at the employees who had trusted his rules. Every refrigerator temperature was recorded. Every delivery was supposed to be verified, yet the questionable bottles had entered under the authority of Trevor. Andrew ordered everyone back to preparation except the sauce station. The cooks remained hesitant. Trevor lowered his voice just enough to pretend the insult was private. "You are allowing a personal grievance to control your kitchen." Morgan heard him. "So did the staff. This is what she does," Trevor continued. "She finds one irregularity and makes decent people defend themselves." Morgan did not react. During their marriage, she had become most precise when she was wounded. Andrew had mistaken that precision for coldness, because believing Trevor had been easier than examining his own decisions. "My history with Andrew is irrelevant," Morgan said. "The records of the manufacturer are not." Trevor lifted another bottle toward the light. "The seal is intact. The product looks normal. We have used this supplier before." "That sentence is not reassuring," Morgan replied. Dana entered through the service door with a clipboard against her burgundy coat. "Why has plating stopped?" she asked. Morgan explained that a sauce labeled as free from tree nuts carried an unrecognized batch number. Dana looked at the waiting bottles. 17 guests submitted allergy disclosures, she said. 4 specifically listed tree nuts. Trevor argued that the database could be delayed. Dana asked Andrew whether he could verify the label. Every employee waited for his answer. Once, he had protected the restaurant by dismissing Morgan. This time, he called the customer service number on the official website and placed the call on speaker. A representative named Claire answered. Andrew read the product name, distributor number, and batch code. Claire asked him to repeat the code, describe the label placement, and explain the inspection seal. Trevor leaned against the counter as though he were bored, but his thumb pressed repeatedly against his index finger. Morgan noticed. Andrew noticed her noticing. After a long pause, Claire returned to the call. "Mr. Kim, our company does not use that batch format," she said. "The distributor number is inactive, and the inspection seal you described is not ours." Andrew looked at Trevor. The confidence had disappeared from his face. Claire told Andrew to isolate the bottles, preserve every package, and avoid serving the product until its contents were tested. Then she spoke the sentence that changed the entire investigation. "Whatever is inside those bottles, it did not come from us." "I have seen that distributor number before," Morgan said. "It was on the delivery that ended our marriage." The confirmation from the manufacturer had connected the present warning to a night Andrew had spent 10 years trying to simplify. Dana delayed guest entry and moved arriving volunteers toward the hotel across the street. Trevor began placing the bottles in a crate, but Morgan stopped him. "Leave them in place until every label is photographed," she said. "You are not in charge here," Trevor replied. "Neither are you while the purchasing records are under review," Andrew said. Trevor stared at him, then stepped away. Morgan documented each front label, seal, and distributor number. When she reached the 7th bottle, she paused over the first 4 characters near the bottom. The kitchen lights carried her memory back 10 years. Magnolia Row had been 3 hours from its first opening when Morgan found 6 cases of imported sauce outside the receiving room. She had been the operations manager, responsible for safety while Andrew created the menu and Trevor negotiated prices. The supplier name looked familiar, but the seals were uneven. Some leaned left, others had dried adhesive along the edge. The batch numbers followed different formats, even though every bottle supposedly came from one production run. Morgan carried one into the kitchen and asked Trevor to hold the delivery. He refused. When she insisted, he accused her of using the business to control Andrew. Before the staff, Trevor transformed a safety question into a story about a jealous wife who wanted the restaurant to fail. Andrew was exhausted, frightened, and surrounded by unpaid bills. Instead of examining the shipment, he asked Morgan whether she could prove the food was unsafe. She said the evidence justified a delay until the supplier responded. "A suspicion is not proof, Morgan," Andrew said before the entire opening team. Morgan did not raise her voice. She removed her manager badge, placed it beside the bottle, and left through the service entrance. The restaurant opened the next evening. Andrew told himself that her departure proved she had never believed in him. Morgan understood that staying would teach him he could humiliate her without losing her. Silence became legal papers, and the marriage ended. In the present, Andrew realized she was not simply studying a label. She was facing the moment he had chosen the confidence of Trevor over her professional judgment. "What do you remember?" he asked. "Not the complete number," Morgan said. "I remember the format. The distributor used 4 letters and 3 digits. Certified regional suppliers used 2 letters and 6 digits then." Trevor shook his head. "You expect us to trust a memory from 10 years ago?" "No," Morgan replied. "I expect the archived invoices to remember it." Andrew took the tablet upstairs and opened the accounting archive with his master credentials while Dana and Morgan witnessed the search. He selected the first year of the restaurant and found an invoice dated 2 days before the opening. The old supplier name belonged to a warehouse that no longer existed. Beneath it, however, was the code Morgan had described. 4 letters. 3 digits. It matched the code on the current bottle. Andrew noticed an attachment and opened it. The form authorized an emergency purchase from an unverified supplier. At the bottom was the signature of Andrew. He had personally allowed the first shipment through. "Your signature explains how the shipment entered," Morgan said. "It does not explain what is inside the bottle." Her distinction prevented the old betrayal from distracting them from the current risk. Andrew stared at the emergency authorization from 10 years earlier. The signature was his, but the memory remained incomplete. "Every new restaurant makes emergency purchases," Trevor said. "That form does not prove fraud." "Then we test the product," Morgan replied. Trevor gave a dismissive smile. "With a photograph and a theory?" "With the validated screening equipment provided for this inspection." Morgan returned to the kitchen. Andrew carried the tablet and the sealed bottle behind her. Dana kept the dining room doors closed while the first guest vehicles reached the awning. "We have 20 minutes before people demand an explanation," Dana said. Morgan opened a hard case on an unused counter. Inside were sealed collection tools, testing strips, sample containers, and a compact reader. She photographed the bottle again, recorded its seal number, and asked Andrew to confirm that it had remained unopened. He did. "Even if the test finds something unexpected," Trevor said, "one bottle does not make the entire shipment unsafe. It makes the label unreliable," Morgan replied. "That requires a hold, while laboratory confirmation is pending." She collected a sample and prepared the preliminary screening test. Andrew ordered the staff to remove every plated appetizer from the service line. The cooks covered the trays and marked them for hold. Trevor watched 60 plates move into the cooler. "Do you understand what this delay is costing?" he asked. "Less than serving food we cannot verify," Andrew answered. Morgan placed the test cartridge into the reader. An 8-minute timer appeared. Dana notified the charity director that a required safety review had delayed entry. Andrew stood beside Morgan. She kept her attention on the reader, maintaining the professional distance he had earned. When the timer reached 0, the device showed a preliminary positive result for tree nut protein. Morgan repeated the screening with a sample from a second sealed bottle. The result appeared again. She sealed both samples for an accredited laboratory and recorded each transfer step. "The sauce is labeled tree nut free," Dana said. "It cannot be served," Morgan replied. Trevor told Andrew to discard the sauce and continue with the other dishes. Andrew looked toward the cases in the pantry. "Quarantine every item from this delivery," he ordered. "Nothing leaves the kitchen." Trevor argued that Andrew was stopping an event over one substituted ingredient. Morgan examined the shipping carton. A distributor sticker had been placed over the original label. Beneath one lifted corner was torn paper. "Who received this delivery?" she asked. Rachel, an assistant manager, said it had arrived before sunrise after Trevor approved it through his account. Trevor reminded her that she had signed the receipt. "I signed because your account had already cleared the order," Rachel replied. At the request of Morgan, the staff scanned every unopened case received that morning. The herb sauce returned no record. A case of tomato puree produced the same invalid distributor code. A dairy-free dessert base produced it again. 3 unrelated brands from different states carried identical authorization numbers and inspection seals. Andrew stared at the pantry. The sauce was not the problem. It was only the first product Morgan had checked. "The labels are false, but the money trail is real," Morgan said. The repeated codes had changed the question from whether one product was mislabeled to whether the purchasing system had been manipulated. Andrew authorized Morgan to review only the supplier records connected to the safety hold, with Dana present as a witness. Waiting guests remained in the hotel ballroom across the street, while Magnolia Row stood silent. Inside the office, 10 years of supplier histories filled the screen. Trevor claimed that shortages sometimes required emergency substitutions. Morgan organized the current invoices by date, manufacturer, and payment amount. The pattern appeared quickly. The records of Magnolia Row showed premium products from approved suppliers, but the shipping papers named Harbor Crest Food Logistics. That company did not appear on the approved vendor list. Official invoices showed full market prices. Separate ledger entries showed smaller transfers to Harbor Crest, followed by consulting fees paid to Atlantic Vendor Solutions. "Who approved the fees?" Andrew asked. Trevor blamed the accounting department. Morgan asked Andrew to open the approval history. Each payment had been cleared through the administrator account assigned to Trevor. Trevor argued that Rachel could have used it. Rachel explained that she could confirm deliveries but could not authorize vendors or fees. At the request of Andrew, Morgan compared the system log with the employee schedule. The latest order had been approved at 4:12 in the morning, almost 3 hours before the shift of Rachel. The login came from the fixed terminal in the office of Trevor. "This does not prove the labels were changed here," Trevor said. "No," Morgan replied. "It proves the restaurant paid an unapproved distributor and concealed a price difference as a service fee. Investigators can determine who controlled those companies." Andrew searched the archives for Harbor Crest. The company name had changed several times, but its vendor identification number remained constant. It appeared in the first year of the restaurant, disappeared for 18 months, then returned under another name. Every appearance followed an emergency supplier request from Trevor. Andrew had approved the monthly statements without reading the attached documents. Trevor had hidden the transactions inside paperwork Andrew considered too small for his attention. The restaurant downstairs remained unnaturally quiet. No pans moved. No server called for a table. Dana entered and said the charity board would wait 30 more minutes before requiring a final decision. Trevor urged Andrew to replace the questionable ingredients and continue. Morgan explained that false records affected the integrity of the entire delivery system, not only a few bottles. Andrew returned to the invoice from 10 years earlier. An attachment appeared beside the authorization bearing his signature. He opened it. The scan showed a receiving sheet partly written by Morgan. She had recorded uneven seals, conflicting batch formats, and an unapproved distributor. At the bottom, she had written a direct instruction: hold shipment until manufacturer confirmation. Beneath it was a note allowing immediate use, followed by the initials of Andrew. Another line removed the final excuse available to him: supplier seal, questioned by Morgan Ellis. Andrew had not approved an ordinary emergency purchase. He had released the shipment after her warning was documented. "I knew the seal was broken," Andrew said. The written warning had restored the part of his memory that fear had hidden. Morgan remained silent. The office seemed smaller around the receiving sheet, the initials of Andrew, and the choice he could no longer blame entirely on Trevor. Andrew remembered the original bottle beneath the kitchen light. He had seen the crooked seal and the dried adhesive. He had also seen unpaid invoices, approaching payroll, and reporters expected at the opening. Trevor had warned that a delay would destroy the restaurant before it served one guest. Andrew wanted that warning to matter more than the evidence. He signed the authorization and told Morgan that suspicion was not proof. "You were right," Andrew said. "I saw enough to stop the delivery." Trevor stepped forward and argued that pressure did not make Andrew responsible for later events. Andrew reminded him that he had accused Morgan of changing the labels herself. Trevor claimed that evidence had pointed toward her. "There was no evidence," Morgan said. "There was only a frightened owner and a partner who understood which fear to use." An apology came easily now, 10 years too late, and surrounded by records that made denial impossible. Morgan had not returned to receive it. She had returned because 200 people were preparing to trust a menu whose labels could not be trusted. "I believed him because his explanation protected the opening," Andrew said. "Blaming you protected me from admitting what I chose." Morgan folded her arms. "Trevor lied to you," she said. "But you decided I was easier to lose." The sentence held no anger, which made it impossible to dismiss. Dana checked the time. 23 minutes remained before the charity board required a decision. More vehicles arrived beneath the awning, and guests crossed toward the hotel ballroom. Trevor urged Andrew to postpone the personal conversation and use verified ingredients from storage. "Which ingredients are verified?" Morgan asked. Trevor answered that regular suppliers had provided them. Morgan reminded him that false codes appeared across 3 product categories and that one account approved substitutions throughout the order. Until the delivery was traced, every related label remained questionable. Trevor warned that canceling would cost the restaurant its deposit, sponsors, winter events contract, and payroll security. Rachel and 2 supervisors stood near the doorway. Andrew saw their concern. That was what made the argument effective. Trevor placed innocent employees between Andrew and the truth. "Protecting your staff does not require asking them to serve products you cannot verify," Morgan said. "But the choice belongs to you. I can document the findings. I cannot make your moral decision." Trevor gave Andrew one final warning. "Once you announce a safety concern, you cannot take it back." Andrew looked through the office glass at the dining room he had spent 10 years building. Candlelight reflected across empty tables. Every detail appeared perfect because the false labels remained hidden downstairs. Dana answered another call from the charity board and covered the microphone. "They need your decision now," she said. "Is the kitchen opening tonight?" "Do not open the kitchen," Andrew said. "Preserve every record." His answer protected the guests, but it raised one final question. Had Trevor merely reacted to Morgan, or had he expected her arrival? Dana informed the charity board while Rachel directed the staff to photograph the pantry, receiving area, and held products. Trevor argued that nothing had been served and no one had been harmed. Morgan replied that preserving records was not an accusation, but resisting preservation was a choice. Andrew asked Dana when the inspection had been scheduled. 3 days ago, she said. The notice went to the event compliance address of the restaurant. It included the name, credentials, and arrival time of Morgan. Andrew looked at Trevor. Procurement managed that mailbox because large events required supplier documents. Trevor had received the notice, yet he had pretended to be surprised by Morgan. Dana forwarded the original message. Andrew opened the restaurant mailbox with his master access. The notice had been read 11 minutes after delivery from the office terminal of Trevor. Trevor claimed he received too many automated messages to remember one attachment. Morgan pointed to his reply. Trevor had confirmed the appointment and approved her kitchen access. His final sentence stated that no operational changes were needed because Mr. Kim knew Dr. Ellis and would manage any concerns personally. Dana read it twice. "You knew who was coming," she said. Trevor claimed he had expected a professional inspection. "Then why did you call her a bitter ex-wife before she finished her first sentence?" Rachel asked. Trevor ignored her. Morgan noticed a forwarding record beneath the message. Andrew opened it and confirmed that the recipient used the same company domain as Atlantic Vendor Solutions, which had received the unexplained fees. Trevor had forwarded the arrival time of Morgan 2 hours after accepting the inspection. His message said that the owner knew her history and would handle her. Andrew understood the design. 10 years earlier, Trevor had survived a safety warning by turning professional judgment into marital resentment. Now he expected the same wound to protect another shipment. He did not rely on perfect counterfeit labels. He relied on Andrew refusing to believe Morgan again. "You knew she would inspect the delivery," Andrew said. "You kept the products here anyway." Trevor insisted that Morgan had created the crisis. Dana reminded him that the manufacturer had denied the labels. Morgan added that 2 preliminary screens identified an undeclared allergen. Trevor told Andrew that guilt over the divorce had destroyed his judgment. Andrew looked at Morgan. She showed no satisfaction. She had returned to prevent his earlier failure from becoming a risk for strangers. "You believed I would discredit her for you," Andrew said. Trevor did not answer. His silence was clearer than denial. Andrew printed the email chain and placed it with the invoices and screening records. Then he removed the access card of Trevor from the administrative console. "You did not build this scheme around false labels," Andrew said. "You built it around the kind of man you believed I would remain." The access card stopped working with one quiet click. "The kitchen is closed," Andrew said. "The records are open." Removing access from Trevor had ended his control, but Andrew still had to accept the consequences before everyone affected. He spoke to the charity board in the dining room, while 200 untouched place settings reflected the amber light. Dana stood beside Morgan near the entrance. Trevor remained at the back. Andrew did not blame a database error or describe the closure as an unnecessary precaution. He explained that the restaurant had received products with false manufacturer labels, that preliminary screening had identified an undeclared allergen, and that purchasing records required independent investigation. "No food from this kitchen will be served tonight," he said. "Every guest will receive an explanation, and Magnolia Row will cover the cost of relocating the meal." A board member asked whether the restaurant could replace the questionable products and offer a smaller menu. Andrew did not ask Morgan to decide for him. "We cannot verify the delivery system," he said. "Changing the menu would protect revenue, not your guests." Trevor stepped forward and claimed Andrew was acting under emotional pressure because his former wife had reopened a private dispute. He noted that laboratory confirmation was pending and that no agency had ordered a closure. Morgan remained still. Andrew recognized the old trap. If she defended herself, Trevor would call her emotional. If she remained silent, he would present silence as doubt. "Dr. Ellis did not close this restaurant," Andrew said. I did. She identified evidence that my partner and I failed to address. The responsibility belongs to me. Trevor warned that Andrew could lose the winter contract in the restaurant. Then the restaurant will face the cost of the truth, Andrew replied. Dana arranged for the verified kitchen of the hotel to provide a replacement meal. No guest had eaten any held product. Andrew authorized refunds and ordered every invoice, recording, receipt, sample, and system log preserved. He notified the restaurant attorney, insurer, and state food safety authorities without minimizing his own approval history. Trevor accused him of destroying their work to earn forgiveness from Morgan. This is not about earning forgiveness, Andrew said. It is about ending what I helped you hide. The staff stood beside the photographed and numbered cases. Trevor had controlled the restaurant by making every objection appear more expensive than silence. Andrew removed him from operations pending formal investigation. Trevor placed his keys on the steel counter and left through the service entrance. Later, Andrew opened the former employment file of Morgan. A statement from 10 years earlier described her warning as disruptive conduct caused by personal conflict. Andrew deleted nothing. He attached the receiving sheet, false supplier record, and a signed correction, acknowledging that her warning had been professionally justified. He sent the amendment to Morgan, the restaurant attorney, and the investigators. Andrew then drafted a public statement praising Morgan for preventing unsafe service. Morgan returned his phone. "Do not make me the heroic ending of your announcement," she said. "Tell people what failed and what will change." Andrew removed the flattering language. The final statement named the failed controls, accepted responsibility, and promised independent verification before reopening. It contained no romance, redemption claim, or request for sympathy. When Andrew sent it, the dining room was dark. Morgan stood near the service door, ready to leave. For 10 years, he had wanted one perfect sentence that might bring her back. Now he understood that the first honest thing he could offer her was no request at all. "The restaurant may reopen," Morgan said, "but approval is not the same as trust." 6 months had passed since the charity dinner, and her words separated professional repair from personal forgiveness. Morning light crossed a quieter Magnolia Row. Half the dining room remained closed. Each delivery entered through one receiving station with cameras, sealed sample storage, and a digital log that no single administrator could change alone. Accredited laboratory testing had confirmed tree nut protein in the sauce carrying the false tree nut free label. The state investigation into the labels, hidden fees, and connected companies remained active. He had ended the planned second location, used the released funds to cover staff wages during the closure, and hired an independent company to review every supplier contract. Trevor no longer held any role in the restaurant. Andrew answered every request for records, including those exposing his own approvals. Rachel had become the compliance manager. Any employee could stop a delivery without permission from an owner. 2 people now verified every manufacturer, seal, and batch history before a product entered the kitchen. Morgan stood beside the receiving counter with a tablet, completing the final independent audit required for reopening. She checked cooler temperatures, training records, allergy procedures, and the emergency supplier policy. Andrew followed without interrupting. 10 years earlier, he had treated her questions as threats to his authority. Now he understood that a trustworthy kitchen required people who were allowed to question it. "Your corrective plan meets the reopening requirements," Morgan said. Rachel released a long breath. "Thank you for documenting it honestly." Morgan handed the tablet to Rachel. Her professional work was finished. She had not visited during the renovation or advised Andrew privately. Every recommendation arrived through formal reports with deadlines and verification standards. Andrew respected the distance because it belonged to her. Near the service entrance, a framed purchasing policy hung where the old manager badge of Morgan had once rested. Andrew had considered displaying her corrected record, but she refused to let the restaurant turn her humiliation into decoration. The new policy carried one unsigned sentence: "No deadline, reputation, or financial loss is more important than verified safety." Andrew walked with Morgan toward the front door. The wholesale market several blocks away was beginning its busiest hour. "There is one thing I would like to ask," Andrew said. Morgan stopped. Her expression warned him not to mistake a completed audit for a repaired history. "I am not asking you to forgive me today," he continued. "I am not asking you to return to what we were." "Good," she said. "What are you asking?" Andrew held up the approved vendor list. Walk through the market with me. Help me ask the questions I should have asked 10 years ago. Morgan studied him. The old Andrew would have offered a grand promise. This version offered a task, a public place, and no expectation beyond the next hour. "One aisle," she said. "Trust comes later." They entered the market without touching. At the first booth, Andrew examined a seal, read the batch number, and asked the vendor to confirm its source. At the second, he found a number that did not match the invoice and set the product aside. He did not seek praise. At the end of the first aisle, Morgan did not leave. She turned toward the next row and waited. Andrew joined her, carrying no promise he had not earned. This time, he read every label before asking Morgan to believe him.